Before Ariel sang under the sea, mermaids dragged sailors under the sea. And mermaids, they used to be the stuff of nightmares. They were worshipped by ancient empires, feared by sailors, and spotted in real-life oceans for centuries. But what are mermaids really, and what did mermaids do to us before Ariel became part of our world? How can completely different regions of the world describe seeing the exact same thing for centuries? Today, we trace the true story of mermaids, from ancient gods to modern sightings, and how centuries of fear, myth, and mystery eventually gave us Ariel, which may be the most iconic version today, but she's far from the first. Our story begins over 2,400 years ago, deep in ancient Assyria, modern-day Syria. Here we meet Atargatis, one of the earliest mermaid-like figures ever recorded. Atargatis was a powerful priestess who fell in love with a human, but her divine energy killed him. She gave birth to their baby soon after. Grief-stricken, she threw herself into the ocean. The gods were moved by her beauty and transformed her into a mermaid. She became a goddess of fertility and protection, a living link between the water and the people, and still revered by some today. Centuries later, across the Mediterranean, Greek mythology told of sirens, originally bird women, not fish women. Their voices were beautiful but deadly, luring sailors to their doom. Odysseus only survived their song by putting wax in his ears. Then there's Ireland's Merrows, who wear magical caps to live underwater, while Inuit mythology gives us Sedna, known as the mother of all sea creatures and protector of the ocean. The Caribbean has La Sirene, a spirit of beauty and danger. In Slavic folklore, the rusalki are the spirits of drowned young women, betrayed brides who return as beautiful but malicious water spirits. They famously lure men to their doom, sometimes by tickling them underwater or singing them into the water. In parts of Africa, the mermaid-like Mami Wata is worshipped as a goddess of water, fertility, healing, but also feared for her seductive power and wealth curses. Offerings, mirror shrines, taboos, and possession rituals make her both potent deity and dangerous spirit. From Japan's ningyo, whose flesh grants immortality yet curses those who eat it, to Celtic selkies, sealed people who shed their skins to walk on land, forced into marriage, cursed once their seal skin is taken, and the Philippines' sirena, water spirits who lured fishermen into shipwrecks with hypnotic song. Mermaid myths form a rich history of seduction, transformation, and fatal bargains from all across the world, stretched out through thousands of years. But by the Middle Ages, they transformed. As Christianity swept across medieval Europe, it brought not just a new faith, but a new lens through which to view the world. Pagan deities, folk spirits, and nature gods were not merely forgotten. They were reinterpreted, recast, and often demonized. And the mermaid was no exception. As Europe transitioned into the Christian era, mermaids, once divine, symbolic beings, underwent a transformation just as striking as the creatures themselves. They were no longer revered. They were vilified. Where cultures once saw mermaids as goddesses, spirits of nature, or tragic figures of the sea, Christianity reframed them as cautionary symbols of lust, temptation, and sin. By the early Middle Ages, the Church had begun weaving the image of the mermaid into its morality plays and religious teachings. Now, the mermaid didn't sing to sailors, she lured them to spiritual ruin. Her mirror, once a symbol of self-awareness, became a sign of vanity. Her long, flowing hair, once mystical, now represented seduction. Medieval manuscripts and church carvings often depicted mermaids with a comb in one hand and a mirror in the other. These weren't just nautical curiosities anymore. They were living warnings, designed to keep men on the straight and narrow. And the danger wasn't just metaphorical. Mermaids became associated with doom. Sailors believed that seeing one was a dark omen, a sign your ship might never reach shore. In some port towns, a mermaid sighting could even delay or cancel a voyage entirely. These half-human, half-fish beings were now symbols of both physical and moral peril. But despite centuries of demonization, mermaids refused to disappear. They clung to the collective imagination as dark reminders of the ocean's mystery and man's weakness. Mermaids were no longer simply sea creatures. They were omens. To see one at sea was believed to foretell a shipwreck, a storm, or worse, the soul's corruption through desire. The sea, already dangerous, became a theater for spiritual warfare. And it wasn't just sailors. In villages and monasteries, mermaids became morality tales for children. Stories warned that vanity could lead to ruin, that beauty could deceive, that temptation was always lurking, especially in female form. The medieval church took a figure once adored in ancient myth and turned her into a vessel of warning. The mermaid became a mirror, not just of herself, but of the era's deepest anxieties, about women, about the body, about the sinfulness of desire. Thus, the medieval rebrand was complete. A sea spirit transformed into a symbol of sin, forever watching from the margins, her beauty now a threat, her story a sermon. In January 1493, while sailing near the coast of Hispaniola, present-day Haiti, Christopher Columbus recorded a strange sighting in his journal. 3 figures rising from the sea. They were not as beautiful as they are painted, he noted, although to some extent they have a human appearance about the face. These so-called mermaids were most likely manatees or dugongs, members of the order Sirenia, whose name itself evokes myth. These gentle aquatic mammals possess rounded heads, large eyes, and paddle-like tails, features that, from a distance and through the distortion of myth, might resemble the form of a human. But Columbus wasn't simply seeing animals. He was seeing through the lens of legend. European sailors of the time were steeped in tales of mermaids, alluring half-human creatures said to sing men to their doom. Myth had shaped expectation, and so even a sea cow could become a siren when viewed through that cultural filter. This moment reflects a broader truth. The age of exploration was not just a physical journey across oceans. It was also a collision of reality and deeply ingrained medieval beliefs. For Columbus, the sea was not an empty expanse, but a place alive with monsters, omens, and half-remembered stories. Educated men like Columbus, Magellan, and Henry Hudson reported sightings. These weren't peasants or sailors spinning tall tales. They were trained observers. Navigation relied not only on maps, but on personal logs, oral traditions, and centuries-old beliefs inherited from Greek, Roman, and medieval sources. Bestiaries and natural histories, even into the 17th century, included entries for mermaids, sirens, and sea monsters as if they were zoological facts. Even scientific minds of the Renaissance, like Olaus Magnus, whose Carta Marina map of 1539 was filled with sea creatures, treated mermaids as part of the natural world. Conrad Gessner's Historiae Animalium, one of the foundations of modern zoology, also included mermaids. though with some skepticism. When explorers like Henry Hudson claimed to see mermaids in the Arctic in 1608, they weren't dismissed. His crew recorded that the mermaid had a tail like a porpoise and very white skin. This reinforced a worldview in which the ocean remained mysterious, inhabited, and only partially known. Mermaids have always lived between two worlds, half human, half something else. But in the 19th century, their story took a more personal turn. In Hans Christian Andersen's 1837 fairy tale, The Little Mermaid, a young mermaid falls in love with a human prince. To join his world, she makes a terrible trade, cutting out her tongue and her voice, the core of her identity, in exchange for legs. Every step she takes feels like knives. And in the end, the prince marries someone else. Andersen's mermaid doesn't get the fairy tale ending. Instead, she becomes sea foam, symbolizing grief, self-sacrifice, and the pain of transformation without reward. But then gaining the chance to become a daughter of the air, earning a soul through good deeds. Over a century later, in 1989, Disney reimagined that same mermaid. Ariel, curious, defiant, and determined, also gives up her voice for legs. But in this version, she wins the prince and gets a happily ever after. The trade remains, but the cost is softened. Ariel became the definitive mermaid for a new generation. Marketed globally, repackaged endlessly, her image overtook the older myths of mermaids as omens, seductresses, or spirits. And yet, she still holds something ancient, because the idea of mermaid trade is not new. In folklore from Ireland to the Caribbean, mermaids demand a price, a voice, a child, a soul. They offer transformation, but it's never free. What Ariel trades isn't just her voice, it's her identity. She leaves behind her world, her family, her body, her history, for a chance at something different. This makes her part of a deeper psychological pattern. Mythologists call it a liminal archetype, a figure caught between states, not quite human, not quite other, yearning for transformation, but never without cost. Ariel made that longing mainstream. She turned the mermaid from a mystery into relatability, a reflection of our desires to belong, to escape, to become something more. And just 5 years later, in 1842, P.T. Barnum created his own fake mermaid by sewing a monkey's torso to a fishtail and called it the Fiji mermaid from Fiji, and people believed it. It's still known as one of the most famous mermaid hoaxes in history. In 1967, crew members aboard a ferry near British Columbia claimed to see a woman perched on the shore. Long hair, pale skin, a glistening tail. She was combing her hair, and then gone. In 2009, residents of Kiryat Yam, a quiet seaside town in northern Israel, began reporting something strange, something otherworldly, emerging from the sea. They claimed to see a creature leaping from the waves. It had the upper body of a woman, the tail of a fish, and it vanished just as quickly as it appeared. The stories caught fire, so much so that the municipal council offered a $1 million reward for any photographic proof. Officials weren't just indulging a myth, they were reacting to dozens of independent, consistent reports, some from tourists, others from longtime residents. Despite the media frenzy, no one ever claimed the prize. But that didn't stop the stories. And this wasn't an isolated case. In 2012, over 5,000 kilometers away in Zimbabwe, dam workers near Mutare and Gokwe suddenly walked off the job. They said they were being attacked by mermaids. These weren't metaphorical claims. Workers described physical encounters, strange noises, machinery failing, sightings of fish-bodied, human-faced beings lurking just below the surface. In local Shona cosmology, such entities aren't fantasy. They're sacred. Known as Njuzu, they are water spirits, powerful, often vengeful, and deeply respected. The government took the reports seriously. Instead of dismissing them, they halted construction and authorized traditional ceremonies to pacify the spirits. These are contemporary accounts reported in rural villages and urban harbors alike. But even in regions without that spiritual framework, stories persist. In 2013, Animal Planet aired Mermaids, The Body Found. It was a fictional documentary that drew millions of viewers, blurring myth and science so convincingly that some viewers believed it. And here's what's most remarkable. Across cultures, languages, and continents, the details are strikingly consistent. A woman's face, a fish's tail, a figure that rises, stares, and then disappears beneath the surface. In a world divided by oceans, cultures, and belief systems, how do the same stories keep surfacing? Maybe it's the power of shared imagination. Maybe it's the echo of older myths we've never truly left behind. Or maybe, just maybe, there is something still out there, waiting, watching, just below the surface. Let me know, do you think mermaids are real or that the sightings are credible? And if you thought the truth behind mermaids was strange, wait until you hear what really happened in the original Little Mermaid. You can watch the entire twisted story here. Thanks for watching.